Ever wonder if you're making guitar way harder than it needs to be? After 30 years of playing, tens of thousands of hours, countless gigs, and more mistakes than I can count, I realized I could have made way more progress and saved decades if I'd known back then what I know now. For the past 18 years, it's been my mission to help hundreds of students avoid those same mistakes. So here are 30 lessons from 30 years of playing that could save you years of pain and help you move forward way faster than I did. Let's go. You've probably heard of the 10,000 hour rule, that it takes 10,000 hours to master something, but that's only half the story. It completely depends on how you spend those hours. Looking back on my early practice sessions, I spent countless hours noodling or replaying things I'd already mastered. I'd probably been playing guitar for 15 years before I learned how to structure my practice properly, and that's when I really started to grow. Set specific goals, break things down, and practice with intention. It's not enough to just clock hours. 10 minutes of focused practice beats an hour of mindless noodling. Have you ever tried to read something that you had no interest in? You end up rereading the same paragraph over and over and remember nothing. But when you're genuinely interested, you absorb it effortlessly. Guitar is the same. I've worked on all kinds of music, rock, blues, jazz, flamenco, classical, bluegrass, not because someone told me to, but because I was just following what I was interested in. And every time I did that, I improved because I was genuinely motivated to learn those styles. I didn't follow all those paths with equal discipline, but they all influenced the way I play and think about music now. If you ignore what excites you, it becomes draining, but when you follow your curiosity, you retain more, push harder, and get results faster. A lot of players get stuck on this one. If your goal is just to get good at guitar, it's hard to know exactly what that means or when you've arrived. Once I got clear on the exact kind of player I wanted to be, my practice changed. I stopped chasing random exercises and started focusing on the skills that would actually lead me to become that player. Do you want to be a great improviser, a singer-songwriter? Who are your favorite players? Reverse engineer it and build your practice around that. The more specific your goals are in that moment, the more productive and focused your practice sessions become. No one starts with perfect technique. Trying to get everything right from day one is overwhelming and often counterproductive. When I teach beginners, I show them good technique like posture, hand position, and fingering, but if you try to force everything to be perfect from the start, it can stifle progress and kill the joy. I've found that students grow faster when they're allowed to build a connection with the instrument first before obsessing over technique. So don't aim to be flawless from the start. Focus on sounding good, enjoying the process, and making small improvements every day. Some habits will need fixing, and that's completely okay. This one is kind of opposite to the last one. Everyone picks up bad habits when they start. It's part of learning. But the real danger is keeping them, which will ultimately hold you back. I used to tilt the guitar so I could see the fretboard. I looked back and forth between the hands constantly. I played with flat fingers and avoided my pinky. These habits made things easier at first until they made progress impossible. At first, you don't know any better. But once someone points it out, a teacher or a video or something, you have a choice. Either change and grow or remain held back. Don't wait until a habit becomes ingrained. Drop it before it slows you down. Copying your guitar heroes is a great thing to do, but I've seen students get stuck trying to copy aspects of their heroes playing without ever questioning whether it works best for them. I've met players who avoided getting lessons because their hero never had lessons. Others forced themselves into uncomfortable picking grips or postures, even when it created tension or held them back. Everyone's story is different. Some of your heroes have physical limitations that shape their technique, and some even develop injuries later because of their technique. So by all means, take inspiration from your heroes, but recognize that you're an individual and their methods might not always work for you. Embracing that will help you grow faster, feel freer, and develop your own unique style. Which brings me to my next point. It's easy to obsess over fixing your weaknesses, and yes, they do matter, but chances are you already have things that come naturally to you that others struggle with, and that's your unfair advantage. I spent years trying to be good at everything. It helped, but I often felt like I was second-guessing myself. When I've listened back to recordings of myself when I was really leaning into my natural strengths, it sounded more like me. not a second-rate version of a more polished player. Of course, you should work on your weaknesses, but don't forget to double down on what makes you unique. Guitar lessons only work if you're open to learning, but sometimes we resist advice, especially when it challenges our habits or ego. That resistance can quietly stall your progress. I've worked with several great teachers, and I'll admit, I didn't always follow through with every task, but whenever I fully committed, I improved, every time. Find a teacher you genuinely trust, then give their guidance a real shot. If it's not working over time, that's okay. It might just mean that it's time to find someone's approach that fits you better. It seems crazy to me if you're going to pay someone for advice if you're not going to listen to it, but I continue to be shocked at how often this happens. Most players avoid using their pinky because it feels weak or awkward, so they rely on their other fingers, which leaves their pinky underdeveloped. I hated using my pinky at first. It felt useless and didn't do what it was told, but I realized early on that not being able to use it was limiting me, so I trained it and never looked back. Your pinky won't feel natural at first, but avoiding it guarantees that it will stay weak. Getting it under control unlocks lines and shapes that are almost impossible to play without it. The fretboard can feel endless, but the truth is there are only 12 different notes. Once you understand that and know where they are all along the neck, everything gets easier. When I started, a lot of books only taught 3 notes per string and didn't explain the connection between them. But once I learned how to find every note along the fretboard, everything changed. It unlocked a whole new world of guitar playing for me. Start by learning the open strings, then the music alphabet, and then start to find shortcuts like octave shapes that will help you locate the notes quickly. I have a video that will help you to do just that. You can check it out by clicking the link up here. Many beginner lessons on YouTube focus on chord shapes and strumming, and while that's essential, it leaves a major gap in your playing. You miss out on developing dexterity, picking precision, and control across the strings. I've seen students who can strum through chords but are very limited at single note playing. Once they start incorporating single notes into their practice, their connection to the instrument becomes deeper. So balance your practice by including some single note work as well as the chordal practice. It could be scales or simple riffs or melodies. This builds pick control, coordination, and accuracy, while the chordal playing builds strength and groove. It's not one or the other. Practice both and you'll have a strong foundation. One of the most neglected areas for guitarists is rhythm, and rhythm is the key to making anything sound good. When I was younger, I used to practice a bunch of Joe Satriani solos, and I was alright at it, but I had a friend who just nailed them. At the time, I couldn't figure out why his version sounded so much better until I realized it was his rhythmic precision. I was playing the right notes, but he was playing them right in the pocket. So when learning a solo, or anything for that matter, don't just focus on the notes, focus on exactly when the notes happen. Slow it down and lock in with the underlying pulse. Count, tap, clap the rhythms before you play them. Rhythm is king. A lot of students play something once and think they've done it, but that's not how real playing works. When you watch great guitarists play, they repeat parts over and over, connecting phrases, locking into grooves, and playing for minutes at a time without stopping. Just like some of my students, when I started, I would play a riff once, barely in time, and think I'd nailed it. But when I started playing riffs over and over, I noticed improvements in my technique, groove timing, and stamina. At first, it's exhausting to play for a long time without a break, but that kind of endurance is essential if you want to perform music. Don't do it once, loop it, play it again and again, especially in time until it feels effortless. This is how music is actually played, so it makes sense to practice it that way too. Improvising can feel overwhelming. With so many scales, it's hard to know where to begin. I spent years trying to learn bits of every scale before I could actually use any of them. But once I focused on just the pentatonic scale, I started making music. It's simple. Minor chord, use the minor pentatonic scale. Major chord, use the major pentatonic scale. It sounds good right away, and it helps you to focus on making music rather than just learning theory. Most solos in popular music are 90% pentatonic scale anyway, so learn the pentatonic scale across the whole neck. If you want to know the easiest way to do this, check out this video here. Many players avoid transcribing because it feels hard or slow. but by skipping it, they miss one of the most powerful ways to understand the music that they love. When I first started transcribing, it felt like copying a great speaker, learning their vocabulary, phrasing, timing, and tone. Transcribing is not just about the notes, it's about how they're played. All of those little nuances that can't be notated. Transcribing gives you a window into how great players think. You start to understand how they build phrases, leave space, and express emotion, and it opens up insights you may never reach on your own. Most players start by learning everything they play from tab and video. That's fine, but the problem is that many never learn things by ear, and that becomes a major limitation. I was the same at first, but when I first started learning things by ear, even just picking out a few notes from a song, something shifted. It was like watching a black and white image slowly turn to color. I began hearing more detail in the music I listened to, and I connected more deeply with the musicians I played with. It changed how I experienced music altogether. So start small, try figuring out a melody, a bass line, or a chord progression just by listening. Little by little, you'll get faster, more accurate, and more connected to the music. Music is experienced through the ears, so it makes sense to develop them as much as you can. On guitar, playing notes on the same fret across adjacent strings can be awkward. One common solution is the rolling technique, using one finger to roll between two strings on the same fret, but it can be challenging at first. When I first learned it, I didn't do it properly, but it was more like a mini bar than a true roll, which made things harder and sloppier. But once I mastered it, it became an indispensable tool. The rolling technique is a great way to navigate certain lines smoothly. Make sure you can roll both ways, from lower to higher strings and vice versa. Once you get it down, it becomes a powerful tool for clean, efficient playing. Most beginners rely solely on clip-on tuners and never learn any other methods, but tuners aren't always perfect, and if your ear isn't trained, you won't notice when something still sounds off. I use the 5th fret method, harmonics, then a tuner, and I always play a few chords after tuning to check. I also make a habit of tuning up to the note or tightening the string, which helps to keep things stable. If something sounds off, I trust my ear. Over time, my ear has become much more sensitive to tuning issues. I still use electronic tuners all the time, but I'm not dependent on them. Learn all the tuning methods. Always tune up to the note, not down, and check by playing a few chords. Don't blindly trust the tuner, use your ears. Tab gets a bad rap, but it's very good at showing you where to play something on the fretboard, and that matters a lot on guitar, especially when you're first starting out. When I was learning, tab made things click faster. It gave me quick access to learning songs, which is huge on an instrument where the same note can appear in multiple places. I'm not saying that you should rely on tab for everything, but it's definitely a valuable tool to help you learn. While tab is valuable, a lot of guitar players get stuck on it and never learn to read music, and it makes sense. Just like we talked about before, guitar is one of those instruments where a single note can be played in multiple places. But I can tell you from my experience that learning to read music notation opened up an entire world of music for me. I was able to explore classical pieces, read transcriptions of saxophone and piano solos, and of course, it's been an essential tool as a professional working musician. It also gave me a way to visualize rhythm clearly, something that tab just doesn't do very well. Learning to read music is not the most urgent skill for most guitar players, but learning the basics early on can unlock opportunities later, especially if you want to go deeper into theory or if you want to play professionally. Some students are resistant to changing fingerings, often because they've developed habits that just feel comfortable. But in many cases, I've found that the real issue is a lack of confidence with certain finger combinations, which limits their options and leads to weaker choices. So develop coordination with all finger combinations. It's not just about using one correct shape, it's about choosing the most effective solution for the situation. The internet is full of misinformation. Between tutorial videos, tab sites, and even official books, none of them are 100% accurate. If you rely on just one source, you could end up with something completely wrong. When I was first starting out, I'd often trust a single source without questioning it, and sometimes I get stuck, frustrated, and not understand why it didn't sound right. These days, I will usually check a few different sources, tutorial videos, tabs, and live footage. By combining sources, I can usually piece together something that's much more accurate. If something sounds or feels off, check other sources and trust your ears, not just what's written on some random tab site. Which brings me to my next point. Once you have a version of a song that you can trust, you want to get it off the screen or page and into your memory ASAP. Too many players fall into the trap of needing something other than their instrument just to play anything at all. I went through phases where I could only play songs if the chart was in front of me, but memorizing songs allowed me to just grab the guitar anytime and play, without books or devices. Start memorizing what you learn. The more music you know, the more confident you'll feel, especially when playing with others. I've always been secretly jealous of piano players. They're able to play all the parts of the song, chords, bass, melody, no band required. Sometimes the guitar can just feel really limited by comparison. But the guitar can do things that pianos can't. We can bend notes, slide, add vibrato, harmonics, change tunings, and those are the things that drew me to the instrument in the first place. All of these expressive tools allow you to create your own voice, so take advantage of them. Don't just play the notes, say something with them. Playing at home and performing live are two very different things. I've seen students overestimate how they'll cope under pressure, and it rarely ends well. I used to think that I could play something a few times at home and I'd be fine on the gig. But when I wasn't fully prepared and I tried to wing it, it led to some pretty sketchy moments, and they didn't feel great. There's no downside to over-preparing, but under-preparing can cost you opportunities, confidence, and momentum. If performing is your goal, make sure you're prepared. A lot of players find their preference early on, either pick or fingers, and then they stick to it. And that's totally fine, but exploring both techniques builds a broader foundation, especially if you want to check out different styles later on. I started as a pick player, and I still am. But when I began exploring fingerstyle techniques through jazz, flamenco, and classical, I added another dimension to my playing. It wasn't about mastering every style, it was about building tools I could draw upon when I needed them. If you only use a pick, try your fingers. You can start simple by exploring some finger picking patterns or hybrid picking techniques, or even just plucking some open chords. You don't need to master both, but it will change your perspective and expand your creative options if you check out both techniques. Inconsistent practice is the quickest way to plateau. You forget things between sessions, your fingers lose strength, and it always feels like you're starting over, which is very demotivating. I've done the marathon practice sessions, but they don't produce great results if you leave lots of time between them. When I practice consistently, even in short bursts, that's when my playing really improved. Aim for consistency over intensity. 5 to 10 focused minutes a day will build more momentum than a few exhausting hours each week. If you can get more than that in, that's great, but it's the consistency that will pay off in the long run. When I first started guitar, my left hand was rigid, like it was locked into place. It seems obvious now, but every note, every chord, every dot on the page is always moving somewhere. Once I started to understand this, I began reading ahead on the page. I could hold one note while my hand moved to the next. My pick would anticipate the next note and move there with intention, and suddenly my playing had flow. Train yourself to think ahead and start moving before it's time. Every part of your technique should be in motion, always leading towards what's coming next. Guitarists often stay in a guitar bubble. They learn from other guitarists, transcribe guitar solos, and build habits that sound like guitar players. But when I got into jazz, my favorite players became sax players, piano players, drummers, even singers. The piano players opened up my harmony, the sax players influenced my soloing ideas, and the singers taught me about great phrasing. So step outside the guitar bubble. Learn from other instruments. You'll start to play new things, not just typical guitar licks, and that opens up a world of creative possibilities. Practicing alone is great and very necessary, but you're missing out on a very fun time if you never get to play with other musicians. My biggest leaps in growth came from playing with others. The musicians I played with became like my teachers. I was constantly learning just by playing with them. I learned how to accompany, how to listen, how to lock in with a great drummer. And beyond all that, it was just fun. So play with people as early and as often as you can. Jam with a friend, join a band. It's one of the great joys of being a musician. If you've ever felt stuck, even after years of playing, one of the best things that you can do is to go deep on unlocking the fretboard. You can find a ton of ways to do that on this channel, but click here for one of the best. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of my long list of regrets. I'll see you in the next one.